want to first thank you all for spending the evening with us on this seminar. We've got a wonderful presentation to be presented to you by our associate here, Scott Fisher. I just want to remind everybody that we do these every month. So please, if you find value in it, come back, bring your friends, family, and anyone you think would get value from any of the presentations that we do. If you see any subjects that we're not currently presenting that you would like to see, please let us know. We'd love to get your feedback. There will be time for question and answers at the end of this seminar, so please wait until the end. And at that time, you can use the question and answer section. You can raise your hand or just type it into the chat. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, Scott Fisher.
Thanks, Chris. My name is Scott Fisher. I'm one of the financial consultants here on our team with John Graham and Associates. And this evening, we're going to be talking about special needs planning. So through that, we're going to be talking a lot about different points of view with it, whether it's how to create a plan and what goes into that, all the way to the different vehicles that we're going to be able to use within that plan. So let's get started. So starting us off here is with some statistics. 12.7% of the US residents, including all ages, report of having some type of disability. Now, breaking it down a little bit more to the age groups, 5.4% are from ages 5 to 15, 6.2% between the ages of 16 and 20, and then 10.6% ages 21 to 64. So, and what these stats I think really show us there is that while some disabilities might be happen at an early age or from birth, but also people are becoming disabled there later in life as well. Some more statistics. 1 in 59 American children have an autism spectrum disorder. And 1 in 10 older Americans have Alzheimer's disease. And we can really see the wide range of ages that we're going to be speaking upon are not only children's, but all the way up to the elderly. So exactly what is special needs planning? There is going to be a lot that comes into the special needs planning, but while it might seem like a lot, it doesn't mean that it has to be difficult. And so in its core, it's really the process for providing for an individual with special needs, taking into consideration the needs of the family as well as the individual. Now, these plans, it can not only just be made by one individual, but it also, might take the whole family, the loved ones to be there throughout this planning process as well. And through that, it might be, again, just not the parents, but the siblings, friends, both parents there, or any other people that might have some responsibility there in the future. So the goals with special needs planning, that first goal is we want to make sure that you're balancing not only just the plan to help with today, but also with the future there as well, and focusing on your loved ones as well as your own self on top of that. So the main important thing of creating and implementing personal care, financial, and legal plans. After that is done, you want to make sure we're communicating these plans with any relevant parties, again, either medical specialists or personal family. just like any plan, after you've created it, you want to make sure that you're reviewing and revising those plans as any circumstances change, either with personal circumstances or things changing in the laws that affect the financial plan, or what have you. And lastly, to go along with that communication, we want to, make sure the plan is airtight and that the assured family members know and feel confident that their loved ones' needs are going to be addressed properly. Now, what happens if we don't plan ahead? So with that, you are going to run into some risks. And so majorly, if you were to pass away without these decisions being made, that question of, well, who would be in charge if you're gone? If we don't have the proper plans in place, you might not be the one making that decision. Also, how do the assets get passed down, through your estate? Without the proper planning, again, that might be something that's out of your hands. And then lastly, the money that we do leave there for family members and our loved ones, well, what happens if that runs out? If we weren't planning ahead, maybe they run out of money far too early, before it should have with the proper planning. So with those planning steps, and so we're going to go to all 4 of these steps here a little bit more in detail. But first, we're going to create and implement a current personal care plan for your loved one. Then we're going to create the transition plan for continued personal care as the circumstances change. Create and execute the legal plan. And finally, create and implement a financial plan. Step 1, create and implement a personal care plan. So through this, throughout this planning process, what we're wanting to do is, answer questions such as who will provide the care. And so is that going to be, hey, are you able to, as of right now, or are other family members or friends, stepping in to help? Is it possible we might need a full or part-time professional to help take that care? Where your loved ones live. And so maybe they're independent and they're at home and they are self-sufficient. Maybe they are going to be living with another family member or friend. Or lastly, perhaps it might be best for an assisted living arrangement. More questions of what type of care is needed. Household chores or other daily activities, washing and dressing, preparing meals, transportation, medical, or safety and emergency plans. All of this, comes in of not only that what type of care, but, down to the details of what does that really entail, with the meal prep or, with the medical directives, and so forth. Step 2, the creating a transition plan. And so what we really mean by the transition plan is to having those steps in place for the continuity of care and supervision. And so that you are confident that if anything were to happen to you, that your loved ones are having the right amount of care and supervision that you had when you were in charge. And so through that, wanting to make sure, hey, who are we? Who is that backup plan? What are those services? What if circumstances change? How do we replace those? As life changes and life moves forward. And so, part of that here is too, is kind of bringing out our crystal ball and trying to anticipate and prepare for those future events. And so answering those what if questions, what if you die unexpectedly? what happens if, your loved one is not able to make their own decisions, either financially or medically. Put yourself in those worst case scenarios. And when we're planning for the worst, we already have everything in place that we would need if we would ever cross that bridge. Step 3, and the creating and execution of a legal plan. And so with that comes a few different documents that we would need. First, the medical directives, the power of attorneys for, healthcare, for financial, the durable power of attorneys, your last will and testament. And this is what allows you to have things in concrete writing of, the level of care and whatnot that you would like to see happen with your estate. And what you can also create is a letter of instruction. And so those can be, as detailed or as open-ended as you would really please. But the main thing is those are not legally binding. And so if we want to have, concrete instructions, we want to make sure that those are in the will and that those are, legally binding. And so to help you with all of this, we would absolutely recommend hiring and working with an estate attorney. And so, some attorneys just have a broad field of expertise, and then there's others that really narrow it down into one. The estate planning or special needs planning attorney can really be of most benefit because of how complicated, estate planning and special needs planning can be. So creating and implementing the financial plan. And so with that, for a lot of people, the financial plan might look like saving for retirement or looking forward to kids' colleges. And, for other people, that might not be the case. And so, through that, if we do have the special needs planning as part of your financial plan, we need to be looking at the down the road of, if you were no longer around, what would be that monthly cost to take care of a loved one? How long are we going to have that cost for? And also, we want to be factoring the price of inflation here as well, and making sure, hey, as the cost of goods coming up, that our buying power stays the same. So within that financial plan, one critical part of it is, insurance. And so, if we have, good health insurance or long-term care insurance, to help us offset any of the medical costs there in the future. If you were to pass away unexpectedly, life insurance is a great way to be able to leave, a sizable inheritance to help, financially support your loved ones as well. And then lastly, hey, how does that estate planning come in, through through your will? That's also going to be a directive of where your assets and have their final, positioning in that financial plan. And so without that will, you're not going to have that be able to control where those assets go in some circumstances. So transitioning to, with special needs planning comes the need to preserve the government benefits. This is, quite a quite big part of it, especially for those who are currently in that situation and understand that the benefits, if they're receiving from the government, how much of a difference that can really make. And so why we're talking about how can we preserve that? Well, some of those government benefits are needs-based. And so the government only allows for those people to only have a certain amount of income and only $2,000 worth of assets. And so we very much know that, hey, the $2,000 isn't going to cover all the expensive potential, really, especially in today's world. So how can we best protect those benefits? Now, in order to do that, you may need to legally protect some of those assets to make sure you're still eligible for those benefits. And so through that, where are these benefits coming from? Well, wide range of organizations, both either from the national level, the state level, all the way down to your local community, are all going to be able to offer some type of benefit. And so now, not all benefits are going to be based on financial needs. And so, we have two examples here. One, Medicare, which Medicare is the free healthcare provided through the federal government as you get to the age of 65 and older. You also have the Social Security disability income, which again is not needs-based as long as you are qualifying. And there's also many other benefits, including the special education assistance. And there are many more out there that we're not going to be able to touch on here today, but I do want to encourage everyone to do their research and look up these outside benefits that are not needs-based, that can play an important role in that planning for the future. Now, like we said before, some are needs-based. And so Medicaid, there is the joint between the federal and state program that helps with Medicare costs for some people with low incomes and limited resources. And then we also have the Supplemental Social Security Income, or SSI. And so this provides extra income, monthly income, to people over the age of 65 who are blind or disabled and who have limited income and financial resources. So through that, we're gonna talk about a few different ways of, well, how can we legally protect those assets so we are qualifying even for the potential federal benefits on the needs-based side. So with that, what were these techniques? First off, hey, they're allowed by the federal and state law to maximize those resources. So these are, you're allowed to take advantage of, and they're in place to help families become better prepared. And so we really want to make sure that we're utilizing these to their fullest potential, because these strategies are there to help to make it easier there in the future. And really with the proper planning, a lot of these governmental benefits are going to be available to the families, regardless of our resources or our assets. Now, what that really is a big benefit for is what it allows the government benefits to really pay for those basic living needs, and then the families and personal resources can be used as that secondary support and really be able to use to enrich our loved ones' lives. So with that, one of the common vehicles to protect those assets is a special needs trust. And so with that, they got their official legal status there in 1993. So not something that's been around for hundreds of years, but now here going on its third decade now. And so with that, assets in a properly drafted and administered special needs trust will not be counted as available assets. So through that, you're able to, again, protect those assets. Now, the key to it is those types of trusts as they provide income and disbursements. It's generally not counted as income. So there are multiple different types of special needs trusts. And so the first is the first party, then we have the pooled, and then we also do have the third party. And here we also do want to note that, the creation of a trust does come with some costs and expenses there, especially when we're working with the state lawyers and making sure everything is set up properly. So firstly, the first party SNT. Now, these are created for the sole benefit of an individual with a disability under the age of 65 at the time that the trust is created. So this is one of the first kind of caveats, right? Where they do have, your loved one does have to be under the age of 65 when the trust is created. Now, this can be created by a parent, the grandparent, legal guardian, the court, or by the individual with a disability with capacity. Now, the trust is funded with assets of the individual with a disability. And so this can be from inheritances, divorces, lawsuits, can also qualify to come into the trust, any proceeds. So. Now, there are some main benefits, especially to the first party trust. And so with that here, the number one rule is it avoids Medicaid and SSI look back provisions. So with that, because those two things are needs-based, the government does look back at a person's history through the last 60 months. If they gifted away all their assets to become on the needs-based program, they go through that look back period and those people will not qualify. However, those assets going into the first party SNT are going to be allowed to do that and go directly onto Medicaid and qualify for SSI if they qualify. So it avoids the look back provision. Second, here, the assets in the trust will not be countable as resources for eligibility purposes. Now, the one con with the first party SNT is that upon the individual's death, any money or assets remaining in that trust must be used to reimburse the government for Medicaid benefits extending to the individual during their lifetime. So that is one kind of drawback to these trusts is the repayment side to them. Now, a pooled SNT. So with that is kind of what you imagine, where a a charitable organization is going to be in charge and pooling those funds together for the investment purpose. Now, each individual and each family are going to have their separate sub accounts, maintained for their portion of the assets. Now, again, depending on the state laws, it's going to be the same issue where, hey, it either goes, your portion is going to either go back to pay for Medicaid, or it's going to get lump summed into the larger pool of assets to help others, in that pool. Now, a third party SNT. Now, these can be created by a parent of an individual with a disability or a third party. Different than the first two, there is a no payback requirement in most cases. So the creator of the trust must not have a duty to support the individual, which meaning of that individual wouldn't have to be over the age of 21, depending on state law in most cases. However, different than the first-party SNT, the beneficiary does not need to be under the age of 65. And this is why we kind of stress that importance of working with the proper estate team and estate lawyers. Is a poorly drafted trust, it may trigger an ineligibility for the Medicaid or for SSI on the needs-based. Now, the special needs trust is not the only way to save and to, put assets and still be able to be eligible for those government benefits. You do have the option of an ABLE account. And so exactly what are ABLE accounts? Well, they're tax advantaged savings vehicles, similar in some respects to a 529 college savings program. And so the ABLE accounts, they're available to individuals whose disability began before the age of 26 and typically are either currently receiving the social or SSDI or are going to be there in the future. Now, account funds will generally not count towards the personal asset limit for SSI and Medicaid as well. Now, ABLE accounts, similar to 529 plans, are ran and operated by the individual states. And so I know not all 50 states have ABLE accounts. However, the state of Illinois does. And so with that, their plan is going to be a little bit different from, Michigan's or one of the other states there. And so with that, you want to make sure and understand the pros and cons of each state's ABLE account. Same with a 529 plan. So eligible individuals can only have one account. The contributions into an ABLE account are after-tax contributions. They can be made really by anyone. And so similar with that 529 plan, and any of those earnings are grow on a tax-deferred basis, and those distributions do come out tax-free as long as they're used to pay for a qualified disability expense, which, those what's a qualified expense, right? Well, the list is long. It can be, job training, transportation, housing, the personal care, assisted technology. All of these things do count as a qualified expense. Now, how much can you contribute? Well, the annual contributions are generally limited to the federal gift tax exclusion, which for there in last year was $15,000. Now, ABLE account owners who work may be able to contribute more, and so when that comes in would be those ABLE account owners that work and that are not participating in their company's sponsored retirement plan. If they are not participating, then they have the ability to put even more, 10, 12,000 plus more, depending on the state, into those accounts. Now, lifetime contributions, they have limits as well. And so for the state of Illinois specifically, as soon as your ABLE account gets to $450,000, you're no longer able to make more contributions. The only growth within that ABLE account from then on would be the growth of earnings. Now, if it were to come down below that point, you would be able to start making contributions again. Now, there are no federal income tax deductions for these contributions, but and again, depending on the state that you're using their ABLE account, they may or may not offer tax deductions at the state level. And I do know that the state of Illinois does offer up to a $10,000 state income deduction for individuals and $20,000 for a couple married filing jointly. Now, the account owners would also be eligible to claim the saver's credit as well. Now, one of the exciting things, and I think partially why the 529 plans are often looked at as a brother to the ABLE account, is the transferability between them. Now, funds are allowed to move from a 529 plan into an ABLE account as long as the beneficiaries of the two either are the same, or if the beneficiary of the ABLE account is a family member of the 529 beneficiary. So now with ABLE accounts, it is possible that they may be subject to Medicaid payback provisions in the event of the beneficiary's death. So both special needs trust and ABLE accounts, might both have their pros and cons, as we kind of went through, depending on each individual situation. And so with that, you want to make sure that you're working with your financial advisor and your estate lawyer to go through and ask and answer these questions of what makes the most sense and why. And with that, it's going to be different for everybody. So, in conclusion, if you have a loved one who has a disability or who has a special need, we need to be asking ourselves, hey, are we concerned about their future personal needs and financial security? Are we, concerned about, not only meeting your loved one's needs, but also your own? And again, that's where it comes in, where there's a lot of moving parts to it, and wanting to make sure how can you live a fulfilled life and have your loved ones live a fulfilled life as well. So we went through a lot of things. I did a lot of talking, and so some big takeaways, we want to, start thinking of these questions, those what ifs, start planning. Planning is a process, and, it only gets started, today, if you get going on it. So with that, I'll kind of stop sharing my screen and open it up to if anyone has any questions.
Well, if we don't have any further questions, I just want to thank you, Scott, for that wonderful presentation. And I think the main thing I learned out of there is while there are many options, it's also can be very complicated situations. So lots to keep in mind and think about. So definitely you want to work with your financial advisor and legal counsel if needed. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Again, we do this every month, so please come back, bring your friends and family. We love doing this, and thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful evening.